Hi, welcome to The Hill is Always Greener, a show where four friends have chill discussions about Sonic the Hedgehog to distract themselves from the inevitable passage of time and how bad our backs and shoulders and, all the other old body parts hurt. Hoo boy.
Wait, let me tell you.
I gotta go fast, but I can't anymore.
I feel bad that you actually reminded me of that. I was like, oh yeah, pain all the time. Cool.
I gotta get to my doctor real fast.
I am Jeremy, also known as Game Buddy.
I am Chris, also known as Falero. We're doing the real names edition of the podcast this time around.
Yeah. I was about to say.
I mean, we kind of always do it in a way.
Sort of. Luke, Cyberlink.
This is Jake. Rock the Jake.
That's the double Jake.
It's just right there. It's just right there in the name. If you don't know, well, now you know.
Row, fight the power.
Before we get into our main topic, which, if you don't know, we've decided to, after our Sonic CD Spectacular, decided to go back a little bit closer to how we started off this whole podcast with the follow-up to the adventure games, Sonic Heroes. But before that, I think we got some extracurricular Sonic stuff to talk about. Luke, you have some interesting things you did. I want you to elaborate on these for everybody now.
Obviously, we all know about how the eShops for 3DS Wii U are getting shut down very, very soon. Basically, I saw that during the final Sega fire sale for all of their eShop games, the two Sonic Boom games for 3DS were on sale for dirt cheap. And I'm like, well, these are going away forever and they don't cost much. I might as well bite the bullet, pick them up, see what they're like. And
I'll buy that for $1.
Yeah, or a few dollars, but close enough. And then months after doing that, I finally sat down and actually played through them and kept playing through them. And now I have 100% in both games. Honestly, they're okay. They are not the absolute dumpster fire that their big brother on the Wii U is. They're actually surprisingly passable. Props to Sanzaru for doing a pretty good job.
I remember hearing that at the time that everyone was still so blown away of how bad that Wii U game was that the 3DS titles just kind of got shoved into a corner for being like, hey, these are okay.
And I think they got a little bit caught in the crossfire from Rise of Lyric, honestly. But
yeah,
I would say Shattered Crystal still has some issues. There's only 8 normal gameplay stages, and they are super duper long. I think some of them run around 10, 12 minutes in length.
Oh boy.
That's a little bit much. And also it does the unleashed cardinal sin of find collectibles before you can open up new levels.
Oh,
yeah.
The collective groan.
Yeah, but I kind of like the framework of what they had, being able to switch between characters on the fly. Everybody's got different abilities, much like Sonic Heroes. But it's kind of interesting that they are a little more focused on exploration. They've even got Metroidvania style maps on the bottom screen that kind of get opened up as you look around and fill in those spaces. It's a very different take, and I'm kind of into it. And I did ultimately end up getting all the collectibles in that. And then I think Fire and Ice is an improvement on all fronts. There's more stages that are shorter. I think the switching between the Fire and Ice auras is an interesting gameplay hook. You actually got Amy playable in this one, which the first one didn't have, which is a step up.
Really?
Yeah, no, the first one is just Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Sticks. Amy is the damsel in distress.
Wow.
Yeah. But you got the full squad in the sequel, and I think it works to its benefit. You've got actual bosses in the sequel as opposed to just the final one in the first game. Honestly, I think that, for sort of an attempt at imitating the Sonic Rush style with some light exploration stuff. And also the collectibles are not mandatory in Fire and Ice, which is good, but I still got them anyway. Honestly, I think those games are, if you're a Sonic fan, they're worth at least giving a look. Fire and Ice, I might actually full on recommend. They're not bad.
I have a nostalgic longing for that era of gaming when handhelds were their own thing, and you would get like, wow, yeah, there's also going to be a new, Sonic Rush game, or one of those, and I just kind of miss little experiments like that. You still get like every once in a while there'll be like a mobile game that's pretty fun, but it's just hard to compare those two. Yeah, that sounds interesting. I do have those on my 3DS as well. I will have to dig into them someday.
I cannot wait till we cover Sonic Boom in general. Because
Yes.
what a baffling decision it was for it to ever happen. Curious results, and as you pointed out, there are some solid games as a result of it, and a pretty okay TV show, as I recall. But the decision to go with Boom and then to just abandon it because it didn't work out that is a time period in Sonic story. Because I remember when we all got together to talk about this, because we just seen the silhouettes of the characters and we're like, I wonder what all this is gonna mean. What is Boom gonna be really? Turns out not much in the end.
So the other thing I did was I finally got my hands on a Mega EverDrive Pro. At this point, trying to collect old games is a fool's errand and a strain on the wallet, so I'll just buy a flash card so I can put them all on one thing.
There you go.
And as I discovered, the firmware for that comes with a piece of software that you can use to convert videos to a Mega Drive compatible format similar to the Sega CD. So literally the very first thing I did with this Sega Genesis flash cart was watch an episode of Sonic F on it.
It was a little surreal seeing that whole setup when you sent us that little video clip.
It is the weirdest thing I've ever done with a Sega Genesis, and yes, I have plugged a 32X and a Sega CD and a Sonic and Knuckles cartridge into one once.
I mean, that's just the Tower of Power. That's a standard thing that I would never be able to do because I didn't have all of them, but still.
Living the dream.
I didn't either. I just mooshed off somebody else.
No, fair enough. It's the only way to do it, really. The only valid way to do it.
Weird experimental internet hubris. Thy name is Luke.
Kinda.
Well, my Sonic-y week hasn't been quite as, let's just face it, amazing as Luke's with putting Sonic F on a Mega Drive. That's an achievement that's going to be written down in our own history books. But I did get to do something pretty cool over the past 2 weeks really. I'm trying to experiment a little bit with how I make content for YouTube. Not a huge experiment, but like I want to try to do like themed drum cover months, because I have a new setup with my drums where I can just like record a bunch straight through, which I'm already reconsidering because my hands are healing from blisters from playing for like 3 hours. But for my first themed month, it's going to be a Crush 40 month. So I selected 4 songs and I recorded drums as best as I could to them, and getting ready to start the editing process and all that and the mixing, and it's just going to be a lot of fun, especially because I love Crush 40, and I've already done one Crush 40 song for my channel, which is, fittingly, it's What I'm Made Of, which is from this game that we're talking about today. Mm-hmm. I don't think I want to spoil which songs they are, but I definitely suggest that you keep an eye out.
I have something, some Sonic content that I've been saving up because
Yes.
I was in the grocery store not too long ago. I had seen this on Twitter, probably one of the many like Sonic accounts I follow. But it is the new edition of the official Sonic the Hedgehog trademark brand breakfast cereal from General Mills. So...
Man, we haven't done like one of these what's new in the Sonic week for a while, and now we're bringing it back. We're going whole hog here. Jeremy's going to do a live ASMR stream of them eating cereal.
Yes!
So I know eating on mic bugs some people, so we'll put timestamps so you can skip past it. But yes, I'm looking at this box that has some generic Sonic art on the front, and also a Sonic the Hedgehog 2 only in theaters. Not anymore. Advertisement on there. It's kind of interesting to see those two Sonic designs side by side. And then on the back is a help Sonic collect the rings. I think this is just like the map from Sonic Generations classic Green Hill Zone on the back here. But yeah, it's like a little find. They want you to like, where's Waldo, where's Wally, find the Chaos Emeralds, and stuff like that.
I really appreciate you doing the alternate version of the name, just like you've been doing with Genesis and Mega Drive lately.
I know, right? It is completely I've been consuming and been exposed to so much British culture and media that I code switch. But I'm gonna bust this thing open and give it a taste.
It's gonna bust.
I don't have a bowl and milk. This is gonna be a dry run.
You don't have your bowl for your cereal?
Oh yeah, I should say that these are sweetened honey flavored cereal with Sonic marshmallows, and the Sonic marshmallows are a green Chaos Emerald and a blue 6-pointed star, which I don't know. I guess could represent
the back
Sonic.
of Sonic's head.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
All right,
Which
so
is
there we
mostly
go.
what you see during a lot of the modern games, to be fair. So
Yeah.
All right, let's give it a try.
Anticipation.
Some marshmallows in there.
I feel like you're not getting the full experience about milk, but eating it dry is quite the bold choice. But
No. The Got Milk commercial was the other guy.
Yeah. Well, I've got a beer here too, if that helps.
that's the true experience.
That's
Peek
adult
behind
cereal.
the curtain.
That's how you cope.
Okay, so they're little rings, but I would not say they're like Cheerios as far as like the texture goes. But it's pretty good.
So he's not ripping off that bee.
No.
Ha.
Now, the only comparison I have as far as like themed cereals is the Mario Odyssey Amiibo cereal, which was basically like trash Lucky Charms with some vague Mario shaped Marbits, which was very bad. But no, this is pretty tasty.
Suck it, Mario!
Yes,
Yeah.
but is this box an amiibo?
Oh.
No.
Well, as you'd expect, the Sonic one has superior taste, so...
Yes.
Haha.
Genesis Dennis's what Nintendo Dennis is. Now, it does have an advertisement to download the Sonic Dash mobile game on the side. I don't know.
You mean the one you can already download for free?
Yeah, does that count as a prize in this day and age? But no, that's pretty good.
Unless it gets me the one Angry Bird I missed out on the event on, no.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty tasty.
Would you have that for your breakfast?
Yeah, I think so. I usually, I don't do a cereal for breakfast too much anymore. But no, yeah, I'd say that's pretty tasty. It's hard to place that honey taste. It's not quite Honey Nut Cheerios. I haven't had Golden
Hard
Grams
to
in a while.
place that honey nut taste.
But no, that's tasty. Mm-hmm. And the Marbits just taste like cereal marshmallows. Everybody knows what that tastes like.
Yeah, styrofoam.
Yeah, with a little bit of sugar.
That's how I like my styrofoam.
Just a dash.
Yep.
A Sonic dash.
I'd give a tentative Sonic thumbs up to the Sonic the Hedgehog cereal. It is pretty good. All right, so I guess we'll jump into our big topic today, which, like we said at the top, is Sonic Heroes. Just revisiting this game.
No, you mispronounced it. It's actually pronounced Sonic Heroes. Sonic.
Gyro.
So we're moving from cereal to gyros.
Yes. God, if I said that that's my favorite Sonic short, is Sonic
I've been thinking about
Gyros.
that. Oh, I've been thinking about that ever since we announced this topic.
God, it really is. It is.
I just think of
man.
like the weird pre-release version of the theme song where Johnny hasn't written the words and he's just scatting.
It's made with lamb and tzatziki sauce. Yeah.
Good stuff. So, yeah, like I said, this is kind of in the same vein as our first couple of episodes where we talked about the adventure titles. I feel like now, especially now that we've gotten a lot of episodes under our belt, we can talk more broadly about like the game as a game in general. You know, we talked about those adventure titles, which, you know, maybe in the future we'll talk. We'll have to revisit those as far as the gameplay themselves. But this one, yeah, let's talk about Sonic Heroes, because I feel like we have a lot to say, and somebody help me.
Okay, so let's just say this is the beginning of a new direction.
I'm pretty sure somebody help me is also what Takashi Iizuka said during development.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, so this is a new direction for the 3D Sonic games, let's be honest, and let's... It was down. No, we okay. I don't want to start off by being negative, because this is an interesting game, very creative. Like, I think we can all say that much.
It had
Yes.
a lot of interesting ideas, maybe not executed to the fullest of their potential.
So what I do want to do at the very beginning here is give a little bit of background on, I tried to educate myself on like what was happening at Sega while this game was being developed.
Fire.
Yeah, you're not too far off. I did watch a cool video. I don't believe he is a self-professed Sonic fan, but just found the topic interesting. But the Golden Bolt on YouTube did a video called The Fall of Sonic Team, Sega's Collapse, Crunch, and Chaos, which, as hyperbolic as that title might sound, is actually talking about, like, the early 2000s to, like, 2007 era of Sonic Team, which includes Heroes, Shadow, Sonic 06, etc. But just kind of gives a background on, like, what was happening at Sega as a company. And so that was very nice. That helped me learn a lot. But to keep it short, like, as Sonic Heroes was being developed, Sega was also porting Sonic Adventure 2 Battle and Sonic Adventure Director's Cut to the GameCube. They were also shifting away from the death of the Dreamcast, which, man, is a whole subject in of itself, how they managed to survive that. Like, it involves their former president and a lot of, like, basically like gifting of personal wealth just to keep the company going, which, oh man, crazy stuff. But Sega was also like, still, they were looking to merge with other companies. They were talking to Namco and Sammy, which, if you know what Sega Sammy is, like, that eventually happened. And there was just lots of like crazy, like, what do we do now? Like, we are not dead as a company, even though the Dreamcast definitely is. What do we do now? And one of those was, we gotta make a new Sonic game for all of the current modern consoles, including the PC. And it has to not completely alienate the people that loved adventure, but also appeal to the original, classic Sonic fans, and also appeal to every possible demographic. So,
ladies and gentlemen, this is an impossible task.
yes. And just to finish it on that, Takashi Iizuka, who is now, I think, the general producer for the Sonic series, was the director of this game, which he also directed Sonic Adventure, although did not direct Sonic Adventure DX, which makes it not actually a director's cut at all. But regardless, he was also the head level designer on Sonic Heroes, and according to him, his partner in level design fell ill and could not come to work for several months, and so he was basically doing it by himself while directing and overseeing the game, and talks about how he lost more than 20 pounds crunching and going without sleep. And man, that just puts a lot of things into perspective. That's not good.
It's a good thing that sort of thing doesn't happen in the video game industry anymore, right, guys?
Oh, yeah. Not to start on a downer, but crunch is never good. Crunch, I don't have to be educated in game development to tell you that crunch is always a failure of the bosses in charge and does not make games good. So please do not think that is passion or why these games are good. It's
Absolutely
just driving people into the dirt, and it doesn't have to happen. And we're about to talk about some of the things that were very frustrating about Sonic Heroes, and that puts a lot of things into perspective.
Yep.
So I wanted to say that up top. We don't want this episode to be a downer because there is a lot of cool stuff in here, but I thought it was important to put things, give a little reason why, like, maybe some of this stuff happened. And
it's nice to have context, like, to not just assume, why didn't Sega make it good? It's so easy. No, lads.
Hire this guy.
And the only crunch you should be using to lose weight is the exercise routine, so...
Yes.
And
And even then, like, love yourself.
Yes.
As somebody, not to get too personal, but yeah, somebody who also has gone through weight problems, like, do the thing that makes you feel the best. Don't make yourself miserable. So anyway, yeah, let's talk about video games.
Don't make yourself miserable. Now, anyway, Sonic Heroes.
Well,
Come on, are we going to lead in with that? Yes. Look, this game came together. It's a working game, and that is thanks to the superpower of teamwork and unhealthy working conditions, which is more or less the same thing, really.
so I did want to say up front, I think we all might have played this slightly differently, or was I the only one who didn't play it on Dolphin?
We're all pirates, yar har har.
I mean, I own a physical copy. I thought about playing it on the GameCube. Then I realized I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up playing it on Nintendo, which is a program that works on your Wii U, which unlocks the latent power that was disabled, which is just the Wii part of the Wii U that can still play GameCube games.
Oh, cool.
So I basically played this. You could, almost on original hardware, about as close as you can get without a real GameCube, with some tweaks. Like, I had widescreen and some of that stuff, but it played basically how I remembered it on the GameCube.
This is usually the best version to play as a GameCube. We should probably mention that.
Yeah, I feel like the GameCube was the lead SKU most of the time for that era of Sonic.
The Nintendo had the biggest piece of the Sonic pie. Make of that what you will.
Yeah, Dolphin honestly does a really is probably one of the best emulators out there in terms of being able to accurately emulate the original hardware. So it's as good a choice as any, honestly.
Yep.
It worked rather well on my terrible, beaten up, barely holding together PC, except for during the credit sequences and a few of the canon sections where it chugged pretty bad. But aside from that, it was more or less the same experience.
I also played it on Dolphin, and it took me a little bit of figuring out, I was having some weird texture problems, but I looked at a few things online to figure out why that was happening, and then eventually I got smooth, good gameplay out of it. And, speaking of us playing it on Dolphin, I think at varying times we all kind of admitted, I don't want to even say admit because that sounds like we're doing something bad. We all just blatantly said, hey, we're using cheats.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, it was just a few times, or I did the first couple levels, and I was just what would be fun? Cheats.
I did. I think I might be the craziest one out of all of us because I played through, I think it was Team Sonic and Team Rose and some of Team Dark before I decided to fulfill, what was it, 13, 14-year-old me's dream. Back then it would have been importing a region swapping disc and buying the Japanese version of Heroes. But nowadays you can just download the Japanese ISO. And so I started the game completely over and decided to play it in Japanese because that also just has the same English subtitles that are in the localized versions.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, got cheats working on that because I've never played that game with in Japanese because I like that cast a lot. It's the same cast that carries over into Sonic X and the rest of the games. It's the first time Ryo Hirohashi as Tails, who has played Tales since Sonic Heroes and all Sonic media.
Including the movie.
Yes, including the recent Sonic 2, which is super neat. So anyway, yeah, that was really cool to play this game in Japanese with that cast and, find some of the differences. And we'll definitely get into some of the translation differences as we get there. But yes, I also got cheats to work. I think I had to go to a site and build my own list of gecko codes to load into my loader. But yeah, I got them to work basically because that part just stopped being very fun, having to level up the characters and worry about ranks and,
I would have done cheats, but I didn't bother to look how. But I did abuse the save states because they're there, and I don't want to restart the level over again. It's not fun sometimes.
Yeah, I never use save states, but after finishing up with Sonic, I'm like, okay, I'm turning on everybody at level 3, and then 2 campaigns later, okay, I'm turning on Infinite Team Blast.
I wasted no time.
A blessing and a curse.
There's nothing like the unlimited power of playing Team Chaotix and after a short cooldown, just being able to have them go at you every time.
That is the sound of giving up.
I do. Oh man, that was one thing I forgot to. I'm gonna have to go look them up at the extracted voice clip so you can hear everything they're saying. I think that's pretty funny.
Oh my god,
you can barely hear, but yeah.
I have listened to them all separately because I have to hear for a thing that Recorder Dude was doing, and it's pretty funny hearing them isolated.
Yeah. I know in Japanese, Vector says something like, blah, blah, blah. I'm Vector the crocodile. Can you dig it?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Ore-sama wa Vector crocodile iotaka!
Also in Japanese, Team Chaotix's Team Blast is 4 seconds longer than in English. So it's a solid 12 seconds and you're just is it worth it for me to use this Team Blast? I guess. The timer stops in the game, but not my life. So.
What's funny to me is SBO sounds really rough and hoarse throughout the whole game in English. Except for when he sings, and suddenly it's born in the darkness to live in the darkness. That's the ninja's creed.
I do wonder if anybody has ever actually tried starting a band that just consists of a shamisen, a drum, and a lead vocalist.
Somebody out there.
I can do it.
It's a new thing called Chaotix Wave.
Hey.
So, I want to dive into, I guess, probably the individual teams, which kind of going through those, we can talk about the levels. But overall, revisiting this game, it made me realize, I think we were talking in the pre-show, how much more patience you have as an adolescent playing a new video game. Because I remember playing through all of this game. Now, I don't think I've ever done 100% of it because the unlockables are super garbage and not fun. It's just hard mode, super hard mode, and a bunch of dumb extra missions. But I remember, giving it the old college try and going back to it and I did not have the same level of patience now as I did then, because a lot of the little frustrations really stood out to me. So I'm glad I decided to go about it in a non-traditional way and played that Japanese version. So even though some of the game was very frustrating, I was experiencing it in a different way, and it was fun to go, cross-check some of the translations and, shout outs to Wendy once again. It is very, very cool to see to compare those translations. So I'm glad I did that at least.
I feel like we sort of need to get into the fact that this is a completely different experience from the adventure games right off the bat. They are trying something really new. The whole team-based mechanics.
Like there's definitely a similar framework to the adventure games, but the team stuff completely changes the way you approach so much of it. And
Yep.
I feel like, admittedly, the team mechanic is the only way that this specific concept could have worked, because they specifically said that the whole reason it came about was because people kept asking, we want more characters in this, we want this character, we want this character, and trying to come up with, separate campaigns and gameplay styles for all those characters just would not have worked, which is why it necessitated the team approach, which, I think that's a good idea and concept, honestly.
Yeah, that's going to be the recurring thing about this. Great idea and concept. Now the execution, boy, that's something.
I do like the the categories that they sort the characters into, because it is a neat way to not completely strip out the unique characteristics of your players, but also like they all make sense. Like when you see the teams, even like non-traditional flyers like Cream, it still works as far as sorting them into those categories. And I like that. I've seen that kind of brought back in fan stuff and whatnot.
Even in official stuff, like that's carried forward into stuff like, team racing and riders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I also feel like Rouge makes more sense flying like this, like flapping her wings as opposed to gliding.
Yeah.
I know she was meant as like an analog to Knuckles in Sonic Adventure 2, but I don't know, it just fits the bat a bit more, I think.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that she kind of switched archetypes there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, that does work in this one.
I personally like the little, even though it can be a little...
The level up system, yeah.
The power cores and...
They can be a little tedious if, like...
That's it. That's the word I was looking for.
You fly off, like you're all at level 3, and then you fly off the level and die and start all over. But
I do, yes. So thank you for saying tedious, because that is what I was looking for. It can be a little tedious to either find them or have to re-find them. But I enjoy what they do for the characters. For the speed characters, honestly, I don't really see much difference, because the whole Rocket Excel thing is really finicky and weird anyway.
Yeah, the biggest difference there is that it adds the wind effect to your homing attacks. So it's easier to like deal with the turtle enemies or poles or whatever.
Ah, okay. But I enjoy how it like makes the attack for the flying character better with the like electric shield around it, and then especially the power characters. That's where it really shines. Like with Knuckles, like volcanic eruption thing, and Omega's like missiles shooting out everywhere, and then of course Vector's exploding bubblegum everywhere.
yeah,
that's such a fun thing.
It feels like one of the things they should have nailed down, one or the other. Like either do your character power upgrades or enemies that take like multiple hits, or tone that down, because like I said, when you've got all 3 upgrades, you're invincible, you're abusing the thunder shoot because it's broken and will kill everything, including bosses. And then you lose all that and start over, and you're like, okay, well, there goes all my momentum, because now I'm just switching to Sonic, your speed character, and doing homing attacks, because that's the only like a reliable way on a lot of enemies. So yeah, I like the system. It's just, it can be a pretty big pain if you lose a lot of progress. And it is one of those things you're like, it makes sense to lose it after a death, but then so many of the deaths feel real cheap in this game that it just compiles on there. But
I mean, some of my least favorite deaths are like after automated sections, like where you feel like it's going to lead you on to the next bit. You're like, okay, I'll just let it keep going. Oh wait, no, I was supposed to do something here. All right.
They wanted me to land on this rail as the camera is at a terrible angle to aim at it, and whoops, yep, I died. Let's go do that same 5 minutes again.
I'm just gonna let it play out while it goes in this auto section where I'm running through a loop. Oh wait, the physics caused me to fall off the loop while I was in the automated section, and now I'm dead.
That is something that I noticed, is that there are automated sections, but it does not want you to let go of the control stick. And I don't have the solution for auto sections. Like 3D Sonic has always used them because that's kind of the easiest way to show a cool loop, and I get that. But yeah, there are ones in this game to where it's like if you let off that control stick, your character screeches to a halt and falls. And I'm like, you can't do both in that. You can't expect me to control it while also not controlling it.
It's not even, screeching to a halt. It's just like hitting a specific piece of terrain at a weird angle, and it just flings you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that almost all of the levels are suspended over bottomless pits, which is one of the worst things in any Sonic game.
Yep.
Just bottomless pits everywhere.
Yep.
Just the cheapest deaths.
I'm remembering our discussion about Sonic CD and how there was like hardly any bottomless pits except near the end during that one horrible part before the final boss.
Yep.
And I mean, like, I think that proves that, like, you can have a very successful, very good Sonic game without bottomless pits everywhere. And yes, Chris is absolutely right. It seems like like every level is above some sort of bottomless pit.
Yep. I don't like the bottomless pits. I do think the backgrounds that are just big blurry JPEGs are incredibly charming in this game.
Yes.
I do like the design of this game. The environments I think are very pretty.
Yeah.
I do love like the colors. I think is kind of in line with classic Sonic games being very vibrant, and I do like the designs, those aspects of these levels.
I mean, Seaside Hill being the first level, it falls into the hill, the hill genre of Sonic levels.
Yep.
It does follow a similar pattern. Because what we failed to mention is these are like Act 1, Act 2 boss. It's very much in the classic formula, because they're trying to please every master available in this game, apparently.
Yes. Yeah, it is a very linear progression with, breaks for a special stage if you manage to hold on to one of those keys, which...
We'll get to that.
Oh boy.
I mean, special stages is another thing from the old games. Having to collect the emeralds yourself, like from the games.
That is another thing that I love in concept, and even remember as a kid, like, oh, these are cool. This is kind of like the Sonic 2 special stages, and going back to them now, like, wow, they just don't work.
No,
they're busted. Like, I had to look up a GameFAQs question from like 12 years ago where someone laid out that the best way to do it is switch to power mode and just boost constantly, and you'll get the emerald within 10 seconds every time, which is not how they want you to play it. They want you to switch back and forth and boost with your speed character, and that absolutely will not work for a lot of these emeralds. And it bummed me out so much to realize that they just are straight up broken. Like you will go onto the sides of the special stage and come to a halt and fall down and lose all momentum. And oh boy, man, we better talk about something positive soon.
I was gonna say, assuming you can even get to the special stage in the first place.
Yes,
yeah.
I don't know how I super feel about the key isn't a terrible system, but also as far as you lose it if you die, you lose it if you get hit. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think it's another one of those that works fine in concept, but not so much in practice. It's probably the least frustrating thing about the special stages for me, at least.
It does suck the way they sort of like assign emeralds to each stage. It's like the second act of each stage has its own unique emerald. And that means that you can't just BS it and go to Seaside Hill or Ocean Palace over and over. You have to go to the exact stage with the exact emerald that's assigned to it.
Which at least they don't make you collect the emeralds like the entire 4 different times if you collect them.
Yeah.
I actually thought that's what you had to do at first. I was like, there's no way I'm doing that. I forgot.
No, they learned their lesson after Sonic Advance 2.
Yeah.
So we can get into the story to begin with, because that's what you lead into. And the story of this one is definitely a lot lighter than the adventure games. In fact, lighter in tone and in quantity.
Yeah. I will say up front, I do not mind this. That is one thing I think I have warmed on more now, is that the very silly, very light framework of the story is absolutely fine. I think it's very funny that you boot up, you go straight to Team Sonic because why wouldn't you? Even though, that's another thing. Team Sonic is your default because it's Sonic. It's Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. But Team Rose is supposedly your easy mode, but the game and none of the materials you would have access to let you know that, hey, this is the easier mode if you want to start off with that. Even though...
There's a tutorial mode, too.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a tutorial, but it's only mandatory if you play as Team Rose.
Yes, which is super... weird. Like, the tutorial is available in the options, but yes, Team Rose forces you to play it, and also Team Rose's levels are, maybe half as long as all the other teams, which...
And they're better because of it.
Yes! I was gonna say, not to jump ahead, but it might be the better experience. But Team Sonic is your default. And this is where you're introduced to, all the mechanics right away. But yeah, the story jumps into is, Tails and Knuckles are in the tornado and swoop down to see Sonic just running through a barren wasteland. Or no, it's like the desert from a Roadrunner and Coyote cartoon. And a talking piece of paper from Dr. Eggman. It's great. It's got impact font and everything.
Can we say for just a second, right from the off, after a rather subdued performance, I thought, in Sonic Adventure 2, Dean Bristow is going ham as Eggman in this entire game.
Guess what, Sonic Heroes?
Yeah. It's very good. I do want to talk a little bit about the voice acting real quick. This is simultaneously the best some of these characters would sound in this era, and also some really weird ones. Who is it? It's Ryan Drummond is still Sonic, and is it Scott Dreyer as Knuckles? Yes. These guys sound great.
Knuckles, we're counting on you. I've got it.
They've obviously refined their performances from Sonic Adventure 2. This is where we get the weird split of Tails is still voiced by a little kid in English, but not in Japanese.
I wanna look around the factory. 僕、ここの工場を見学したいな.
Oh boy, I did track down some comments that Lonnie Manella, who was also playing Rouge and Omochao at the time, but also like directing the localization for these games, that basically said a lot of the weirdest stuff in these adaptations was straight from like Yuji Naka and the producers saying like, no, you have to do it this way. And so when you're playing this game in English and they're delivering what are obviously Japanese like effort sounds and onomatopoeias like Sha, and that came straight from the Japanese side of development, where they said, no, you gotta do it like this. No, we won't explain why. And so I do feel it really, it is super unfortunate that it seems to have undercut the performances of this English cast that were trying their best.
Also, bless the small child playing Tails. I commend them for giving it their all, even while their voice was breaking in every line.
Yeah,
it was
like
very...
it's not a great performance, but also I'm not going to blame a little kid for not being able to, deliver, especially under like the weird kind of demands of the higher ups.
Let's just blame Yuji Naka. It's his fault all the time.
Oh, good. We've been due for a new jingle.
Yeah.
Sorry, Naka-san, but it seems to be the case in this scenario.
I will say, like, there, as far as like Tails' performance played by William Corkery, there's actually parts of his performance that I really like, and I even said it in our Discord chat, like, upon initial playing. My favorite thing is I absolutely love whenever he goes wee whenever he does his little boost in the air.
Yeah, you'll hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. To be fair, there are moments where like this is a kid who does know how to act. The intro to Hang Castle is actually really cute because it's, where Knuckles says like,
maybe that's the ghost of Shadow we saw earlier.
Woo! Stop it, Knuckles!
And that comes across really well. But yeah, there are, just to get all this out of the way, just because I played this in both languages, there are lots of weird little translation, I don't know if I'd call them errors, or just like, again, they were doing the best with what they got. There are some story things that just don't come through properly in English. One of them is at the end of Egg Albatross, that cutscene, in English, Tails says,
It's not an Eggman robot.
and in Japanese, he says,
これ、エッグマンのメカじゃない。
this isn't one of Eggman's mechs, meaning it is not a robot that Eggman made.
Yeah.
That comes through, you understand what he's saying is like, yeah, it's a weird, liquid metal thing that turns into Metal Sonic. Tails is saying like, this doesn't seem like a robot that Eggman made, and that kind of doesn't come through. The other thing I wanted to mention is that Cream in Japanese is kind of my favorite, because she is obviously, thinking Amy is a little, nutso in the head for chasing after Sonic this bad.
Correctly.
And is desperately trying to be polite and not insult her. But there is specifically the cutscene right before Casino Park after the Team Sonic boss fight, where Cream says something like,
それにしても、やられたふりしてまで逃げるなんて、ソニックさんってよっぽど。
oh my goodness, I can't believe Sonic would let us defeat them just so he could escape in the bedlam. He must be really... And then Amy shoots her a look and says in a very serious voice,
よっぽど何よ。いや、なんでもないです。
he must be really what? And Cream says, nothing, never mind.
It is so clear in Japanese, because in English it's just really what? But in Japanese it's like, really what?
Not even that. She says,
Mr. Sonic must be really...
and then Amy responds with,
Really? What?
as if
Oh,
just
yeah, you're right. You're right.
completely misinterpreting the line.
Amy's tone drops in Japanese to be like, really what?
Yes. She's catching on that, what are you trying to say, Cream? And, now that I know some of the behind the scenes, it really is hard for me to blame anybody but people who didn't know what they were doing, imposing weird things upon that. But I just wanted to point out some of that, just because I don't think it's bad, because, hey, we mentioned, you mentioned Tails going, wee, every time you fly. And guess what? They play the same clips in Japanese for every character thing as well. When you were recording this, did nobody say okay, this is the one clip that's going to play, let's get a take that's not ear-splittingly loud and irritating to hear 100 times? But hey, that ain't how it works sometimes. I feel like that is a miracle of modern gaming, that even if you have a game like this that plays lots of repeat clips, is you have a bank of 7 to 10 takes that all play at random, so that doesn't happen. But I very much enjoyed comparing and contrasting a lot of this, and came down on yeah, there are some irritating parts, but it's not all bad.
A couple small things. It doesn't come up nearly as often, but every time you would encounter a new, a certain group of robots, and Tails would be,
Look at all those Eggman's robots.
which is brilliant English, by the way.
Yes. It's not grammatically correct. It's not nice to hear.
It feels like they could have said badniks there, and it would have made more sense grammatically, and also would have been less bad than Eggman's robots.
Yes.
Yes.
But that's a recurring thing throughout this. Second thing I want to note, end of that initial cutscene that we were talking about, Tails and Knuckles leap off the tornado to join Sonic. The tornado just flies off into the distance, presumably to crash into one of the many rock formations.
I was going to say, yeah.
Well, that probably is why in Shadow the Hedgehog it's the Tornado 3 instead of the 2.
Good point.
I do think it's a little silly that Eggman's letter of challenge starts with, Dear Sonic Heroes, guess what, Sonic Heroes?
Yes. Sonic says time to party or don't want to miss the party
Let's crash this
twice
party.
within the same. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm no copy editor, but I might have changed one of those to a different word.
I'm just glad Eggman got in on the branding of Sonic Heroes for this threatening message that he's going to take over the world.
Yeah, I do want to say, as far as, the real superpower of teamwork and stuff like that is, I like that stuff. It's funny. It's in both, because it's Junichi Kanemaru, it is in both Japanese and English.
俺たちのチームワークで奇跡のスーパーパワーを
And I'm like, yes, do that.
Well, I think specifically in Japanese, he says, we'll beat him with a miraculous superpower using our teamwork. But no, it's the real superpower of teamwork, boys and girls.
Yes. Like, I don't know how else you would translate that. And they just went
one.
for it. Yep. Same with little stuff like, most of Sonic's lines like that get translated over into English like verbatim, except one of the only differences in Team Sonic's Team Blast, I think Sonic's is blow away.
Blow away!
Instead of blast away. And I'm like, yeah, I could see where you could get that. and also properly adapt that into something that makes a little more sense in plain English. Oh yeah, we started this talking about Team Sonic so we could talk about the levels, right?
Yes.
They are different acts. They're almost separate levels as far as the design goes, but you've got Seaside Hill and Ocean Palace, and like we kind of already mentioned, they're kind of a good introduction. I like how they mostly teach you the different formations and the stuff you're going to get to. I do think it's kind of foreboding that there is a certain, at least in Team Sonic, I know Dark, and I think they might skip it in Chaotix and Team Rose, but there is a flying section with 3 boost rings that's supposed to get you to like this left-hand side cliff, and I promise you, every time I did it, the second one breaks and launches you off somewhere else, and I was like, well, that's foreboding. But these are pretty solid levels. I hate to say that the rocks chasing you at the end of Ocean Palace just can't hold a candle to any of the chases in Sonic Adventure because they just feel so, I don't know, they just don't feel like anything.
Yeah, no, they don't.
You can sort of understand, like, an orca chasing you. Cool! A truck chasing you. Oh, whoa! These weird bespoke wheels that came out of nowhere. Alright, I mean, that's dangerous, but I don't understand it.
Yeah, they almost look like... Do they have scary faces on them?
I think they might do.
It almost looks like... What is that game with the scary voice? It's the...
Sinistar?
They kind of look like Sinistar faces. It's a nice introductory level.
Also, maybe the new most reused Sonic theme of all time.
Yeah, I guess so, huh?
Because it's like, that's one that they actually own the rights to. Might as well use it as much as we can.
Yeah. So, the bosses. They're there.
They look really cool.
Yeah, they're like, the ones that are actual bosses are definitely in that, like, style of, like, a classic Sonic boss, aesthetically.
Yeah, I remember reading something about how they wanted to add momentum to the bosses to kind of preserve the speed from the levels, but I think it almost has the opposite effect because 9 times out of 10, I'm just mashing. If my flight character is leveled up, I'm just mashing Thundershoot, and if not, I'm just mashing homing attacks on whatever the character sticks on. Just building up that Team Blast to take a chunk because, the health system, it's another thing that I don't mind enemies taking, more than one hit. It just seems like it could have been refined a little bit more, which is basically this entire game, honestly.
Yeah.
Because you already mentioned that it feels so much different than Adventure, and that was actually when I played this on the PC version, got it running on a modern system. And one of the tweaks you can do is straight up just tweak some code and make the physics much more like the Adventure games, and it does feel remarkably different.
I can imagine, because playing as the speed type in particular is kind of like walking on ice at all times, just slipping all over the place, going too fast and unable to prevent yourself from flying off the stage sometimes.
And your character decides to do the, I don't know what you call a ledge catch, the old classic Sonic. Whoa. But only decides to do that when they feel like it, because most of the time you'll just fly off and die.
Yeah.
And there's no way to recover. You can't switch right to flight mode and, jump back. And yep, that is one of those.
The ledge catch really annoyed me whenever it happened because, like you said, like most of the time you'll just fly off the edge. But like the times where it does happen, like you have to wait for the whole animation to go through. And my muscle instinct is just to hit the jump button to be able to jump out of that animation. But my teammates jump and I don't, and I have to just sit there and wait for them to finish going Ota,
Yeah. Yes. Again, the highlight of the boss is the design. I love how Eggman's robots look throughout this whole game. It is such a cool, I know people are split on like the egg pawns kind of replacing like individual magnets, but I really love how they mix up the designs. And gosh, when you get to his giant airships that look like big fish in the sky with their googly eyes, and I love it. It's great.
They could have made toys of like the
gosh,
and stuff that you could slot a little Eggomatic into. That would have been great.
Yeah.
They are very kid-friendly looking things. I love them. I love those designs. Even as a classic Badnik fan, I still like the egg pawns. They're silly little things.
If they did make toys, I would actually consider getting toys of like the Egg Knight and the Egg Magician because I just like those designs. They're cool.
So yeah, the bosses look great. I love like we said, the over the top, especially Dean Bristow dialogue from Eggman, just dialed up to 11. That's my favorite Eggman. But yeah, they just play really weird.
It's true.
As far as it's not really communicated like what you're supposed to be attacking. I feel like if they would have maybe had, this spot is vulnerable, and so you hit this wing of the ship first, and then this one. But then we move into Grand Metropolis, which is the first time we see a representation of the Hexaco energy company that is, several characters comment, is just stealing energy from the planet, which nice little bit of social commentary there. I appreciated it.
They're draining the life stream.
Yeah.
The planet's dying, Tails!
This stage is pretty okay as far as the gimmicks go. They do the I would say classic Sonic thing of introducing like a new thing for each stage. And for this one, it's the platforms you're on or the raceway you're on helps propel you forward. And so there are a couple of times where like, you're going real quick, but you got to dodge or switch lanes and stuff like that. I feel like
if these paths increase your speed, how much do you possibly need?
Yes,
I did have Tom's lyrics in my head.
Now that door's open, I just want to say real quick. This could actually be a fun little thing. We all, pretty much the four of us, all met on the old Sonic Paradox forum boards, and there was a phase of time for a little while where a few of us got really into adding lyrics to Sonic music levels, or Sonic level music, and there's one dude named Insector. Insector!
Boy.
Another fellow UK man. And he did some amazing ones. And he did one, he did two for Sonic Heroes. One was for Mystic Mansion and one was for Ocean Hill. Or Seaside.
Ocean Palace,
Thank you. Yeah, Ocean Palace. And man, like in the Discord chat just last night and this morning, I posted like the two that were from that, and like every time I hear Ocean Palace, I think of those lyrics. And like this is totally like, I guess you could call this like inside baseball or whatever you want to call it. Like, but it's
these things never really went out there. It was mostly, we didn't do this to entertain other people. It was a case of just doing it to entertain each other, which meant being as offensive as humanly possible in these lyrics.
Yes.
So I'm very sorry for anyone who had tracked down any of my old with lyrics videos that I did inspired by Kenny or Insector.
Man, I do remember that thread. I hate to say, the only what I remember is I tried for about half a day to write lyrics to Metal Harbor and then realized, oh no, I'm bad at this.
And then I did it.
Yeah, I was bad at it, but I still did it.
Yeah, that was really fun thinking back. Yeah. And yeah, part of that is what led to like the Seaside Denied and
Metropolis Mayhem.
Yeah,
I
that's
swear.
exactly it. The ones that actually took off.
I swear to God, Casino Calamity will come out eventually.
I remember filming the videos of
And I
that.
recorded for that. It's great. It's just really long. That's just part of the reason why it's taken so long.
the about the same time Sonic F Episode 8 will come out, right?
I really hope, for our sake, that this aid does not age well.
Yes, I hope so too.
Oh man.
Oh man, I feel like I'm talking a lot. Does anyone? I mean,
No, please.
I don't have to. I don't have to. Okay. I mean, we're talking about.
We're in the Jeremy formation right now, so you
Yeah.
can take the lead.
Okay, talking about Grand Metropolis and Power Plant. Again, I like the design. This is like a cool future city. Like, it's one of those, I think I remember back in the day being like, golly gosh, do other people live here? Think of the lore implications. And, which is why I'm glad that came to good use in, like the Champions arc and Archie Sonic.
I was about to say
where-
Breezy lives here.
Yeah. Breezy owns all this now. But I remember thinking that's really cool. This is another one that there aren't too many, collar pulling sections. I think I remember one team falling in that lava in the last section in Power Plant, and that wasn't fun because something broke. This also might have been the first time when I was playing, I want to say Team Dark or Team Sonic, where it's like, oh, do a homing attack and then a light speed dash on these rings. I'm thinking, yeah, I love doing that. It's so cool. Oops, it didn't work.
See, that worked pretty consistently for me. So, like...
Yes, the part I'm thinking where it worked is Team Dart gives you a lot of them in the elevator sections, and it feels super nice to hit those light speeds and make it to the top.
Yes.
Yeah, you cut down the level time by that, and you spend less time playing it, so it's great.
Well, that feels like a super neat one, because it works because you're at like a flat plane angle, and that's usually where it messes up. But yeah, all those hit it. But yes, there is one where it's like, a side path where it's like you can go straight, or over to the left, you can hit this one little floating enemy, and then a light speed dash. It should be a very cool moment, but yep, sure did. Just sent me straight into the pit the first time I did it. And that is one of those things I understand is probably super hard to get right as far as like developing a game, but also like, it feels so bad to have it not work, and it wasn't my fault. Like, if it was something I did, like I missed the timing, that wouldn't feel as bad. But it's like, no, the game mechanic you've introduced me to just failed, and so it feels real crappy, unfortunately. Overall, I really like these levels. Again, this is where they introduce you to rail grinding, which we were talking in the preamble, like, does grinding even work in this game? And the answer is yes, but only if you really think about it super hard.
And it's a good thing you don't have to do a lot of that coming after this level, right?
Oh boy. It seems like grinding is affected by, like in Sonic Adventure 2, leaning into turns, but your character gives no or barely any visual feedback to where it's working. And also, it seems like some characters are also constantly grinding backwards, and that really throws me off. I do remember playing as a kid, just pressing B over and over and making my characters do a little dance, and it felt like I was doing something then.
Yeah, it took me until this playthrough to realize that I just had to hold down B, because I definitely pushed B over and over again to make them keep spinning on the rails.
Yes. This is where they mix up the bosses, where you fight another, I'm just remembering, this is where you fight another team, implying that all of these stories are going on simultaneously. So as, if you're playing Team Sonic, you will have a quick skirmish against Team Rose, and if you're Team Dark, you fight against the Chaotix, which,
And vice versa.
I'm gonna make a statement here. I think the cutscene before the Team Dark Chaotix fight is the funniest thing that has been in any Sonic game, because as Rouge is, yelling at the Chaotix because she thinks they are also after Eggman's treasure, they turn around and Vector goes,
Who's this broad?
which I compared it, I think he says like the equivalent in Japanese. God, it put me on the floor. I forgot how funny it is.
It's one of those things like you don't quite expect to hear, and then when it happens, just like, oh, this is a Sonic game, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when you fall in a hole and Amy screams, "Oh my god!"
Yeah. Or she also, if you find like a secret one up, just goes,
Oh my god!
we were talking about wonky translation. That is pitch perfect. Absolutely. That is the Vector the crocodile I want carried forward forever.
Sega does what Nintendo don't.
I do love Vector's voice in this. I know we're going off track here a little bit. What a funny little body. I think you mentioned, Jeremy, before when we were talking about this, that he does have those season 1 Homer Simpson's vibes in his
Yeah.
But he also has like latter seasons Homer Simpson when he's yelling, I think. Like, "Rah!"
It is funny that in the opening cutscene for Team Chaotix, he seems to have a very like intentional, a little bit of like New York, just one of those guys. Which I think, funnily comes back in Sonic X, where at least in the original version, he straight up like does a Columbo impression at some point, which is, that's what Vector kind of sounds like, is, hey, one more thing.
Forget about
But then it fluctuates throughout the game to where he gains and loses different accents. And there's times where he's doing like the old, like, oh, Walter Cronkite, Homer Simpson. Like, oh, come on, guys.
Come on, SPO, let's go out for a frosty chocolate milkshake. But it's when like the introduction, it was when they faced Team Rose, and he just politely comes like,
Excuse me, miss. I was wondering if I could ask you something.
Yes. Which also another Japanese cutscene, he also makes a sound that just sounds like the Home Improvement grunt.
Yes, he does.
So it's hard to harp too much on it because it's just so damn funny. Vector's voice. Funny, haha, before it was just funny, what the hell are they doing in the next game?
Yeah.
But this is where you fight one of the other teams, and it seems like you either spend 5 minutes trying to knock the last person out, or you beat them within 10 seconds because you hit them within the right attack.
I just get lucky on these ones, or really unlucky and spend too much time.
You turn on cheats and you do ultimate blast, and there you go.
Unless it's Team Dark, and then they're frozen in place and you can do nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Something we didn't mention is that this game puts a lot more emphasis on like pre-rendered cutscenes compared to the last few, especially like before all the rival fights and stuff like that. And I remember that being like a huge deal back when this game came out.
Yeah, it's also like the first time they finalized all the cutscenes like to the English part, and so you've got like proper lip sync and stuff like that. And they're definitely, you can see, are rough around the edges, but for the time, I think they look really good.
Yeah,
Yes.
like they are definitely not as like polished as any of the current day Marza stuff, or even what Blur would do in like the subsequent 2 games. But still,
The shift to Shadow the Hedgehog is like, whoo, wow. But it's still it's nice. They're nice little shiny characters. I don't mind it so much. But it's a bit weird looking at the Chow though, because they look like they're constantly. I suppose they are made of water, but it's weird seeing them wobbling as if they're like the glass of water in Jurassic Park when T-Rex comes in.
Yeah, that is a little odd. Yeah, I think I didn't mention, I'm not crazy about how the characters look in this game.
Yeah.
Because it's just shiny plastic, and I don't know what they were going for, like trying to make it look. I've heard some people try and argue that they were trying to make it look like Sonic Adventure era 2D artwork, and I just don't see it. And, it wouldn't help that this would carry forward for the next few games and some of the spin-offs. And I'm just not a fan of the shiny plastic look. I would much prefer, like, muddy textures like the adventure titles. But the way the characters are built, at least, is fine. Like the proportions and all that. And that's okay. It doesn't bother me as much now as it did then. But
yeah, I think they had to, make some sacrifices to basically make everything work on all 3 consoles at the time.
Yeah.
But, for what it is, it's fine.
Yeah. Plus, like, the reason why they do is just maybe they didn't have the time or the resources to, like, put a little bit more into the detail. It probably makes more sense to have, like, a more plasticky look to neatly fit on all the consoles. But knowing what we know now, I gotta imagine at least, like, the crumbling had something to do with it.
From from my research, Jake, I think you're right on track. From what I saw, that I don't know if it was the lead, development hardware, but they did have like the PS2 being the quote unquote weakest of the three consoles they were going for. And so they said, this has to work on the PS2 before, we crank anything up for the GameCube or Xbox. And even then, I think, we mentioned before, the PS2 has frame issues and is missing a lot of the special, particle effects, glowing, stuff like that are in the other versions. And so, I think you're 100% right that they probably had to sit down and say, we want a new look for this game. Also, it has to go to all of these different hardware SKUs. And so I get that. I understand.
While we're on the topic of design changes, this is so small and insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But is it just my imagination, or is Tails considerably more yellow in this game to
Definitely,
match
yes.
to match the red, blue, yellow speed, fly, and power? I don't like that so much.
I know that was that is a big thing, isn't it? That classic Tails was always orange and brown in the cartoons. And then they just straight up decided to make him more yellow in Adventure. And then, yes, he is straight up sunflower yellow in this game. It is super weird, but also I'm kind of used to it. He's gotten a little more orange in later games, and even looking at Sonic 2, the movie, he is definitely classic Tails orange.
I'm glad, because that felt like a massive nitpick, but it's just one of those little things that bother me just a smidge. I guess it was just to match the theming.
Yeah.
Because they had to be okay, Sonic is the blue, so he's the speed, Tails is the fly, so he has to be yellow. I guess.
Casino Park and Bingo Highway. They look great. They're terrible. I hate them. They're bad.
Oh, they wanted to give... They probably listened to the fans who were saying, we really like the casino levels, and Sonic, don't worry, we got you. We can make a good casino level.
Can you?
We mentioned, in our pinball episode, we said we're going to skip over Sonic Adventure because those aren't very good, and we just didn't even think about the pinball in this game because it is abysmally bad. Does not work.
So bad.
I felt insane where I would get dropped under the table and launch my character, and they would just keep going in the direction I was holding. That's not how pinball works. You can't. You can't do that. And it just becomes an exercise of get me off of this table as fast as possible.
I'm convinced that if I had Derek play one of those levels, he would have sworn off our friendship forever.
He would have been very upset.
Maybe in hindsight, good thing you forgot about it in that episode.
Yeah. So I don't know what's worse, the pinball table in Casino Park or the mandatory cutscene sending you down the bingo highway in that one, where it's okay, guess I get to watch this sequence again because my character fell off, and God forbid you accidentally switch characters like the game wants you to before they're all back in formation, because then it'll send you straight back to one of those tables.
So I found an exploit for that.
Ooh. Oh God.
Was it switching characters or?
Sort of. So a couple times where you're going on, they'll put you on the track to do the bingo table, whatever. If you're using speed formation and you approach it very slowly, only your speed character will get on the track and not the other two characters. So if your speed character falls off, it'll automatically switch to one of the other two who is still just standing around back at the start of the tube.
So you won't lose a life, but you have to do that again.
Yes. Which is actually how I managed to fill out the bingo card a couple times.
I actually ran into, I don't know if it's a bug or if I'm just stupid and didn't understand, but there is... this is where the bouncer robots, which also show up in that Champions arc, will suck up one of your characters and force you to switch to formations to free them. I had that happen a couple of times where I either got one of those trapped or got a character smushed under one of the anvil things. And then I got to a point where I needed that character to proceed and they wouldn't come back.
Yeah, that happened to me a couple times too.
The only thing that I could get them back with was a Team Blast, which again, I had the cheat on that was just Ultimate Team Blast. But I thought, okay, if I was playing this casually, that was it. I guess I would just start over. And oh man, that happened a couple of times in a few levels. And I was like, I don't know what the intended solution is. I know sometimes there's a switch you can use to bring the anvil back up, but that was cruddy. These levels are gorgeous, though. I love the designs. Like, all of the egg pawns and their funny little costumes and stuff like that. That is fantastic. Yeah. This also might be one of my favorite, we're saving the music for last, but I love the Casino Park theme. Just the little melody throughout. Except when it changes keys when it's about to loop, and that makes me real anxious. You know what I'm talking about? The very end.
It's like a bit of a Doki Doki Literature Club moment. You're like, what's going wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I do not know musical theory, but I know the key has changed, and also in a way that makes me feel anxious. So
yeah, it is a bit weird that they decided to do that. Okay, part way through, I'm expecting just Monica to appear on the screen.
just Sonica.
Now there's some fan art. Unfortunately, this is also where they decided to mix it up with bosses, and it's Robot Carnival, which sounds fun as a name, but it's just a bunch of regular enemies, and it sucks. I don't think any of these are good.
It's just a miniature horde mode, and it's not fun to play.
No, because all you're doing is just you're building up your levels so you can hit the enemies, destroy them quicker, and building up your team blast to save for when they throw the regular enemies that take 8 hits. And
I'll just team blast them and then stand around awkwardly while Eggman in the background's going
Smash them all.
It's like, come on, bring the next one. Smash them all. That's the plan. Thanks.
Eggman does have some great lines.
Oh, he does.
Don't get too excited, boys! Those were the easy ones!
Yeah, that's one of them. Eggman is turned up so high that it's hard to get mad at some of the weird ones. Like,
this isn't the end!
Yeah, it's very good.
No, I'm really mad.
It's not quite Raul Julia in the Street Fighter movie levels of Ham for a last appearance, but I just realized the significance of this being his last game, so...
man. I know. Yes, and now the next stage is where everything continues to fall apart. Rail Canyon and Bullet Station. So, we already talked about how rail grinding is weird and doesn't seem to work properly. How about an entire section of the game where that's all you do?
Bullet Station is one of those stages that stuck with me because it was one of the first ones I played because I had that Mario Kart Double Dash bonus disc that had the Sonic Heroes demo on it.
That's the one they gave you as a demo? They want you to play the game. They want you to buy it. What's that going to encourage people in?
Oh, man.
Back before they had put the filter on Omega's voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
That must be unsettling.
It's just John St. John speaking in monotone.
Prepare to infiltrate. Eggman's robots must be eliminated. Activation initiated. Approach a wall using homing attacks with Shadow as leader. Press the A button for triangle jump.
No.
I don't have anything to say about these levels. They're kind of ugly. I like how some of the baddies are designed. It almost looks like, God, what is the green rhino from Sonic Adventure? That's what some of these...
Rhinobot. Literally the Rhinobot.
Is that what these are?
I don't think so, but
some
it
of the
definitely
rails?
reminds me of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'll just echo what everybody's saying. Like the rail, like making a whole section of the game just rails. Like you think it's gonna be cool, it's not. But for some reason, I actually really enjoy. I'll call it the immense verticality of the stage, at least for Rail Canyon. Like even though free falling doesn't really play like a much of any gameplay element in that level at all, there's something to me visually appealing about like being on a rail really high up and then seeing rails like really far down and just being like, I don't know, the verticality is cool there. I just like the distance.
I know what you mean. It does, comparing and contrasting this to Sonic and Shadow's final levels in their Adventure 2 campaigns, which also has lots of rails and lots of verticality and falling, and there's even that shortcut in Sonic's where you can, hop off the rail and fall for about 30 seconds. And
Oh, yeah.
I wish it felt more like that, because I think you get a similar sense of scale and like, oh yeah, I'm falling, but I'm going to aim it just right. And Heroes asks you to do that too. Some of the auto sections where it's like, okay, we shot through this big cannon and, okay, all right, I'm about to get back control. It's going to drop me on this rail. And no, the game expects you to guide yourself onto this rail at a bad camera angle with
At high speeds.
Yeah.
Yes. And yes, I remember at least 4 or 5 times like having to redo an entire section because it's like, okay, it just dropped me into the pit.
But I do understand what you're saying, Jake, about like how cool it looks to see all these rails everywhere, rails suspended by nothing, which, by the way, is a thing that's always been in Sonic, and you really shouldn't complain about it too much when you see it in new Sonic games. But anyway, moving on.
Subtle.
I will say I understand what you're saying, and to jump ahead, I think Egg Fleet does it 100 times better.
I mean, that's terrifying.
Egg Albatross is another. It's a bigger version of your of Egg Hawk. I mean, Egg Hawk is literally plopped on top.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make another controversial statement and say I think the giant battleship bosses in Sonic Colors did this concept a lot better of running alongside this big battleship shooting things on you.
I agree. Yeah.
But I see what they were going for. It is kind of cool how stuff drops off of it. And it's enters, a different phase of the fight. But again, it's just like there's no communication on what you're supposed to be attacking to get that to happen. So you just kind of end up mashing and, doing your team blast. And it's one of those, I'm like, I want it to be a little bit better because I love the concept is super cool.
Yeah, I take the Danny DeVito approach with all of these. So anyway, I started blasting.
Exactly. When all else fails. Oh, I do love this is where, regardless of what team you're playing, is where you get the dead Eggman on the ground. Oh, but then the funny little part comes out and he starts laughing at you, and our characters get to react to this. And then I think it's Team Dark and Team Sonic? It's straight up like, oh, jig is up. It's Metal Sonic. Spoilers.
They still don't know, but yeah, it basically reveals it in those two stories.
Which we're acting like they don't spoil it in the opening, the opening demo as well. That wow, that sure looks like Metal Sonic.
This is actually the unofficial continuation of our Sonic CD discussions because Metal Sonic's back, ladies and gents,
and he's spikier than ever.
It's not like they, totally spoiled that in the very first trailer for the game.
Yeah, that too.
We've probably talked about it before, but Neo Metal Sonic is such a cool design.
It's a great design.
Yeah.
I love Metal Sonic in base form because that's just like the ideal form for any robot or character. But yeah, this is like, he's such a spiky boy, and he's he's spooky. I like it.
I think we gushed over in our, our champions, Archie Sonic, that I never realized he has a cool like leather like half kilt. Along with his cape. And I love it. It's super neat. It makes me wish that, you kind of got a better look at him before he turns into a boss dragon at the end.
We'll get to that and the disappointment thereof.
Yep.
So I was kind of surprised after this how much Frog Forest and Lost Jungle are like, all of their little gimmicks kind of work okay. Until you get to, of course, the end of Lost Jungle where you're escaping from the giant crocodile, and
which is frightening, can I say?
One false button press and you just die and have to do the whole thing over, which is real great after you've spent 9 to 10 minutes in a level and had a great run, and then this stupid bullshit at the end throws that all down the toilet.
Very disappointing to me. Missed opportunity if I've ever seen one, that you don't get to do the giant alligator section while playing as Chaotix with
oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mom?
What could have been? The giant frogs that already are just Froggy's models.
Yes, scaled up.
and Froggy's dark alter ego in the second.
Boggy.
Yes. That is one thing that I saw that they... I like the little references to other games. Like Knuckles talks about how... he says something like...
We have jungle mushrooms on my island, too. but not this huge.
Yeah.
And stuff like that's cute.
Oh, acknowledging the classic games, I always like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a couple that they just straight up added in the English localization, but I know that there's Amy comments on in Final Fortress about how it reminds her of attacking the egg carrier and stuff like that.
This weather reminds me of our last attack on the egg carrier.
And I think she also is the one that mentions Casino Park reminding her of Casinopolis in Station Square.
This city reminds me of Casinoopolis.
Or Casinoopolis, as she calls it.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, does she?
I just want to point out, you pointed out that bit where she talks about the egg carrier. That scene was very funny to me because Cream's like,
You've been in battle before? What? You too, Mr. Big?
and Big just goes,
Froggy.
Yeah.
His heart is set on just one thing.
What was it? Oh, yeah, this is where you get your other team battle. It's Team Dark versus Sonic, which, man, I gotta say, is probably peak Sonic and Shadow here.
I love Sonic's reaction to Shadow being alive again. He's just like, guess you're too stubborn to die, is more or less what he's saying.
Yeah, I think I've seen someone say that it's supposedly similar to what he says during the final battle in Sonic Adventure 2, the I Die Hard, that just kind of, it's hard to translate that over. But yeah, I guess the equivalent would be to say, oh, I guess you die hard as well.
You never cease to surprise me either.
Yes. That would have been great.
Oh, that would have been good.
Hey, that's why I pay you the big bucks, Luke.
When you were talking earlier about how, like, because of all the pre-rendered cutscenes, there got to be some focus about, like, making the lips match English words. Like, this is one of those ones where I had to, like, kind of really, like, look closely at it because I was like, oh yeah, like they actually animate Shadow saying to die for, and I was like, oh yeah,
they get that nice emphasis.
It is not the original line. The original line is him saying, like, well, you're going to have to die then, or something like that. But they change it because he's literally talking about a date. It's like, well, I guess it's going to be a date to die for. The sassy little bitch.
Hey, that's my line. No, it isn't.
No, it's not. When have you been known to say that?
Hi, I'm Sonic, and I will actually murder you.
This particular era of Shadow is my favorite Shadow, and it's not that he can't be brooding, because I mean we'll definitely touch on his story, but no, it's like you said, Shadow. He's got that little streak of sassiness in him that kind of gets tamped down these days.
Mm-hmm. You know, he may have forgotten everything about himself, but that remains.
Yes, exactly. I agree.
Yeah, I'm the coolest.
He is the coolest.
I think Hang Castle and Mystic Mansion might be the most complete feeling levels as far as the design, the gimmicks that work pretty okay, and just there are bottomless pit sections, but you actually have a lot of like indoor segments where you can't fall down, and I kind of appreciated that. It might just be some part of me that just likes the Halloween theme. You know, it's a callback to Pumpkin Hill and stuff like that.
For me, I think Hang Castle and Mystic Mansion are... I'm actually not usually one for, like, spooky castle levels, like, aesthetically in games, but, like, these are my favorite ones to look at in this game. Like, I just like the art direction for these two levels.
They look great, they sound great, like, it all complements each other quite well.
I unfortunately, I think they introduced them in Frog Forest and Lost Jungle, but this is where they just start throwing the big hammer guys at you that also don't really communicate how you're supposed to beat them. Some of them take regular damage, some of them have armored helmets on that'll come off with a tornado attack, some of them don't. And it's just like, okay, let me just spam this until I get a team blast.
Yep. Sometimes you have to wait for them to do their little spinny hammer attack so they all get off balance and you can knock them over.
Yeah.
But aside from that, it's just tiring.
It really sucks when you're trying to keep that special stage key and you run into one of these guys and it seems like no matter what you do, you take damage. God, which is another thing. The little egg pawns that have the little lance spears, I swear the hitboxes are on those, like, are always active. And so if you come at them from the wrong angle, you will take damage and drop your key and rings. And
Yeah.
then you get another, it's called something different. It's Robot Storm. It's another horde mode. It's bad.
Yeah, it's the same as the last one, but worse.
They changed things up a little bit just by having you have to, like, use the cannons to jump to different zones and stuff, but it's still not great.
Which for some reason took me a while to figure out the second time. I was like, where am I going?
Yeah. Then you get into probably here. I said this might not be my favorite design. This is the best feeling stage is Egg Fleet because, man, not only do you get that crunchy guitar right at the beginning, you get this. You get the and most of the, I think Team Chaotix and Team Rose don't get it, but Dark and Sonic get the automated section that just launches you into the air at the very beginning. And like you said earlier, Jake, you get that sense of verticality where not only can you not see the ground below you, and you get this gorgeous view of, like I said, these great battleships that look like, you know, God, like a
swordfish.
They're all shaped like different types of like sharks and other fish and stuff.
Yes, I love it. It's Eggman over his loudspeaker. I love how he talks to himself in the third person. He says like, "Oh, this armada built by the hands of a genius." It's great. And yes, you get this sense of you are so high up, and you can see so many things below you.
It's just a really good sense of scale, honestly.
Yeah.
Yes. I really like that in this level. There is rails in this one to get you between sections, but there's not too much switching where you can, you know, fly off into the
stratosphere.
They do introduce these cool, almost Gundam-esque mech robots that transform into jets to shoot you with lasers that are cool, except when they're just blocking all your shots and you don't know how to damage them without a team blast. But again, love their design.
And speaking of the rails in this level, I think are the laser rails in the second one or is it in both levels? I forget.
Yeah, that's Final Fortress.
Yeah, so I actually really like that, especially like when you're holding down B and just grinding super fast, and like when you find that sweet spot where you don't have to jump between rails and you're just going super fast and seeing the lasers go past you. I like the thrill of that. It's really fun.
Yeah.
That was one we talked about, switching rails being difficult. I don't remember it breaking on that section, which is very good. Where they're lighting up, about to, you know, shoot the laser at you, and your other characters will call out, "Oh, it's the yellow laser," and you know which one to switch to. That is cool. There's even, I like this is also one of the ones where I realized that holding forward on that rail does seem to speed you up some, because there's that final section where it's the giant laser about to fire from the giant Eggman's eye, and you can zoom past that and just miss it, and it creates a little bit of tension there.
I wish I knew that.
Yeah, see, because that's another one where I think if you do, if like, oops, you decided to grind this whole thing as flight formation, which is molasses slow, and just get blasted by that laser and die right at the end. Final Fortress is pretty cool too. I love the scary thunderstorm setting. It really does feel like, okay, this is the last level.
Yeah. I know it's a video game, so you don't have to get too deep into it, but like, why does Eggman have more than... Actually, not even Eggman, because it's Neo Metal Sonic. Why does he have so many self-destruct buttons everywhere on his on his carriers?
I mean, my mind immediately goes to that is Eggman's contingency plan.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Just as... Anytime something goes wrong is, well, better blow it up.
Eggman going scorched earth at a moment's notice does feel right to me.
Yeah, you know what? You're
yes, right. That is just his last revenge. Like, oh, you've destroyed everything. Well, I'm taking it down with me, you know.
Guess I'll just jump on the giant red button in the end of this
yes.
I'm going to do the most evil thing. Litter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you really want to get nitpicky. Let's talk about the Eggman has access to just an infinite number of resources to keep these things
I know,
going.
seriously. Like when you start getting into like how does he fund this, you're just like, you know what? I'm not going to spend the brain power on that.
Yeah.
Hey, at least Vector actually asks at one
Yeah.
point, Eggman must be rich. I wonder if he'll hire us.
Yeah.
Which is very good.
Yeah.
I did notice I was picking up on the idle lines a lot more during this playthrough than I think any of my previous ones.
I guess I want to point out the stuff I like is some of them are genuinely funny, like that, especially Team Chaotix. I think Egg Emperor might be like the best regular boss. It is funny. What was that? A couple of years ago, someone pointed out that it doesn't seem to fit the naming with the giant birds unless you know of think of it as an emperor penguin, and I like that.
Oh, right.
I like that
I like
interpretation.
Yeah.
I think this is the one where like the traveling boss does kind of work. I love that they give you like the level up upgrades right at the beginning, and then you can grab 2 extra runs right before the first arena.
Yeah.
And it's a little. This is the only one where it's like, hey, the big glowing rainbow spot with Eggman's face in it is what you hit, and also the one on his shield if you want to take that down to make it easier.
Unfortunately, they don't give you a whole lot of time to like. I feel like if you make one mistake during that first walk up, it really just hammers you. Like, there's not a whole lot of room to jump over the like horizontal slice. So if you get hit by that, get knocked down, he'll keep moving, and then as soon as he hits a certain distance, he'll do his charge at you, which I don't think I've ever managed to avoid. So it's like he just keeps hammering you, and it's very easy to get kind of like stun locked into that position, like right from the jump, and immediately lose a life.
I do love that Eggman, this is one of the ones that has a custom intro where he says all of the characters' names, and so you get like a clear, like, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, this is it! But he goes through all of them. I even love, especially in Japanese, the, Otsuka, rest his soul as well, go,
Emi, Cream, Big.
this is the final fight.
It's a shame he didn't name drop cheese. I feel like this is.
I know.
The poor child.
I need to hear Eggman say Chizu.
Now I think about it, like of all the advantages that Team Rose get, they're actually a 4-character team. So this is really unfair.
That's true.
It's really tipped in their favor.
I wish Cheese was as powerful as he was in Sonic Advance 2. Though.
Oh yeah.
But I do like Egg Emperor as a boss. I wish they might have, I wonder what they did first. I wish this would have been the model for the rest of them, but oh well. So, I mean, we went through the stages with Team Sonic, and Team Sonic's story is like, hey, they beat Eggman.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Their last cutscene is the whole fleet exploding.
And presumably raining like fiery wreckage upon the planet. And, it's fine.
Don't worry, they're over the ocean.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I see their parachutes.
I just want to, before we move on from that, Team Sonic, Team Dark, these stages, we've talked about them in quite a bit of detail, but I feel like one recurring thing throughout them all is I feel like they really wear out their welcome quite fast. Before they start, cycling, doing the same stuff over again.
Yeah, no, those stages can go, upwards of 10 minutes sometimes.
That was my average.
And that's not counting all the extra time from dying and having to replay certain portions.
And my classic Sonic fan brain was like, oh no, I'm nearly out of time.
Yeah, me too.
Just the old limit, the old hard limit. But more often than not, round about the time I would start getting sick of the stage, another checkpoint would pop up, and we're like, okay, guess I'm halfway there. It's rough.
They're just way too long.
I was gonna say that's the thing. Like all of the levels in this game are just long. They just go and go. And yeah, there was the joke at the beginning about how the the Team Rose version may be the best way to play because they're half the length. But there's truth to it. These levels are long.
It's a lot more fun because you get a much more of a condensed taste of the actual level before you get sick of it. So I don't know, man. That's the ideal way to play for me.
With Egg Fleet, when you're playing as Team Sonic, and I'm assuming Team Dark, because in this playthrough going up to the podcast, I didn't have enough time. But you literally have to basically do the same thing twice in just one level with Team Sonic, where you run up and you find the self-destruct button, and then you get thrown to another carrier, and then you do it all over again. And I'm like, we only need to do this once. Why are we doing this twice?
It feels artificially bloated, doesn't it? It feels like they were like, oh, shit, this level isn't long enough. Copy paste.
That's exactly what it feels like.
There's probably a whole other discussion to have on, even more than the adventure games, which did, separate campaigns and lots of repeated levels. This feels like they had a framework and said, this game needs to be X amount of hours long or people aren't going to like it. And, I have hindsight on my side looking back on the last, 2 decades of Sonic games. And I don't know how I don't know if it feels like they are damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they put out a modern Sonic title that was, say, similar to Generations, but was like 4 to 6 hours long with some solid stages, I think people would lose their minds because, that's too short. And so I get it, but yeah, Sonic Heroes, seeing that here, there is just way too much going on. There is lots of repeated sections that, again, like you said, they cut out in Team Rose, and those feel much more peppy when you come across crest over a hill and you're like, there's the gold ring. Great. It's hard not to think. It's just way too long for a Sonic level. Sorry.
Yes.
But then it brings us to kind of like the differences between the stages, because we talked about how like Team Rose is basically the baby version, but is also the best version in some ways.
Yes. And how they barely advertise that in the game itself, that, this is a little easier.
But I like it more, kind of. Because, like, I think the differences are Team Sonic is the base level one. That's the default. Team Rose is the beginner one. Team Dark is the expert one, which is to say they drag it out by having like more like challenges where you need to pay more attention and more puzzles and things, and it gets a bit tiring.
More enemies, I think.
Yep.
Just
in Team Dark in general, more enemies. And then Team Chaotix it's all mission based, where you have to find objects or, well, sometimes it's literally just do the level normal, and what is it like? Find the lost Chow instead of the gold ring at the end.
You have to do the level normal, but it's like a different layout and usually a bit shorter. So I had a bit more fun with the Chaotix.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was fine because it didn't last nearly as long, and it was kind of enjoyable just looking around almost being like a detective.
Especially for Grand Metropolis, where you kill a lot of people like a detective.
Yeah, that's what I know detectives for.
Some of the things that Eggman has you doing for these challenges are a little weird, let's say.
10 hermit crabs.
Literally right off the bat, he's like, I'm going to test your abilities. Find 10 hermit crabs.
At a beach.
Weird, but okay.
Yeah,
by the way, it's Eggman, by the way. Sorry to spoil you all, but that's Eggman.
Yeah.
Clearly Eggman is their client
So,
that's hired them to do this
Here's
job.
the thing. I had that spoiled for me long before, because I remember back when this game was coming out, somebody leaked a bunch of in-progress cutscenes that hadn't been fully...
Oh my goodness.
Production hadn't been fully finished, so they hadn't finished putting the music in or the effects on the voice, so you just hear the walkie-talkie in the opening cutscene.
I've heard good things about you and require your detective services.
And it's like, okay, the game's not even out and we already know the twist.
But you can kind of do right away, because that's Dean Bristow, no matter what way you slice it.
And it's the same in Japanese. It's the same filter that's just pitched up, and you're like, that's Asuka. It's Eggman. I do love, I talked about how I love the lighter tone of the story, and Team Chaotix might be the best one because it's so funny, because they are reintroduced to the Sonic franchise as these silly little guys now.
Yeah, I was so happy to see them back when this first came out, because I was like, my boys!
Yeah, I thought it was super cool, yeah.
I do think it's funny. We talked about their voices that, I can't remember. Did you already mention that, Chris, that SBO in English sounds like incredibly on edge, like gritted teeth?
Spirit
does not super gel with his supposed personality of being a chill ninja.
Yes, I am relaxed.
Pretty much.
I will say, for the sake of fairness, that Charmy is just as annoying in Japanese as he is in English. He does have some super cute moments. I love how most of his gimmick of repeating what others say but wrong gets carried over into the English version. That's pretty funny.
He's just a kid. It's funny for me because this has been brought up many times, but the fact that this is the first depiction of Charmy in a long time, and STC got it right again because they made him an annoying little child. Yeah. They were ahead of the times. They realized, a B character, he's gonna suck.
No, they were right on the money with that one.
Yep.
I do love this small child. He's
Charmy B!
Yes, they at least go all in with it. Like that is what they're going for. I love how at the end when the curtain is dropped and they realize, which I think actually, they imply Vector's the one who figures out it was Eggman and Charmy and Espio are still in the dark. Yeah.
It's kind of implied that he has already had his suspicion by the time of after Egg Albatross. I'm pretty sure that he's saying, I've had these suspicions about our client. Could be who.
Espio's just maybe a close friend, perhaps a relative. Come on, man.
I misinterpreted the who line as talking about Metal Sonic in reference to the Carnival Island stuff from Chaotix. But not having not played it, I naturally assume now that was a weird translation thing, and him actually meaning to say I'm pretty sure I know who it is.
Yes, from what I've seen, that is what is they picked a weird turn of phrase. He just kind of trails off saying, "Oh, it could be," and then the scene ends. But it's very weird. Who? I'm like, no, I don't really, Vector. You might as well just say it at that point.
When it's okay, I was going to lead it to the actual reveal, but Jackie pointed out something to me while I was playing this, is the fact that when you're as Chaotix in Final Fortress, the whole thing is you're supposed to find 10 keys to open up his cell. Then when Vector gets to the cell, he just busts it open with his fists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some dissonance there.
He had to melt down the keys into brass knuckles to be able to punch it through.
Yeah, that's it. It's and then when they open the door and he busts out that Dr. Livingston, I presume, sort of reference of Dr. Eggman, I presume.
I didn't even catch that. Yeah, you're right. Man, that's a
that
weird
whole
one.
scene is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
Eggman stepping out saying, I plan to pay you. In fact, when I take over the world, I will pay you.
I found out that's actually translated differently in the Japanese version.
Yeah.
That when he says, as soon as I conquer the world, you'll get half.
Yeah.
Wow. Both are good, but there's something about the grand way he delivers such a line in the English.
I will pay you!
Another. Do you want to know another translation difference,
Please.
by the way? When they decide to beat the ever-loving him for welching on his deal, Charmy in the English, Charmy says, "Take this, you bad man." In Japanese, he says, "Death penalty."
Oh my gosh! Yes, they're much more murderous in the Japanese version.
Death penalty!
Oh man, it is another super in any version. Yes, the following Eggman just shrieking in pain from Charmy stabbing him to death.
So good.
Oh, I love these guys. I don't know how much I super love all of their missions, and also I remember taking notes and realizing that, oh my god, Shadow the Hedgehog's game is all of these missions. They made a whole game out of these. Oh boy.
But worse, with the choice of picking the other one, I guess.
But they are so funny. I love Team Chaotix in this. I have said it before that I just want some form of media that is just Charmy's two dads solving Scooby-Doo-esque crimes as with Team
There
Chaotix.
was a point where I wanted Telltale's Team Chaotix the game, but...
Yes!
Yeah. Yep. I was gonna say we kind of talked about my favorite part of Team Rose is how funny Cream is in Japanese especially, but their whole thing is that Amy has seen a picture of Sonic in the paper, seemingly kidnapping Froggy and Cheese's brother Chocolate Chow, and so that is why they are chasing after Sonic, which, of course Amy just wants to marry him, which, oh boy, I'm glad that era of Amy is seemingly over and it's a lot more subtle now. But I think it was the Japanese manual that implies that Big and Cream met Amy at like the newspaper headquarters because of the picture of Sonic, and so like they've literally Cream has only known Amy for like this afternoon, which is also funny. But that's their whole story, is they're trying to get their little animal friends back. And
I do like the payoff to that whole motivation, in that it was revealed that, Metal kidnapped them because he wanted like Chaos's data for his big, power.
Yeah.
Like that's a good bit of like, using the lore for, a motivation.
Yeah.
With Froggy, it makes sense. I don't know why they specifically chose Chocola. Is Chocola got I know he's a Chow and thereby connected to Chaos, but there's something significant.
No, I think that's specifically it. Like, he needed a Chow and he just took the first one he could find.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Fair enough.
Also continuing the tradition of Amy being just completely face blind when it comes to the shape of a hedgehog and not being able to tell from the blurry picture, like, well, it kind of looks like Sonic, must be him. Don't know why he's kidnapping people, but I'll love him for
What a
it.
hunk.
I can fix him.
I can fix it. Oh my gosh.
It's not the first time he's been in prison. I can take care of him again. I'll break him out. I don't care.
So yeah, Team Rose is pretty cute overall. I think we've discussed the best parts of it, which are funny jokes and the shorter levels.
Yep.
The Team Blast that automatically gives you a level up, so you don't have to worry about that either.
And invincibility.
And a shield.
And special.
Yeah, all of just like pile it on for the babies.
The babies and also me.
Yes.
Yeah, we are babies in this moment in time. Trying to play this game.
So before we go to Team Dark, I do want to mention the Team Blast for the other two that we just talked about. We
kind of did skip over those.
For Team Sonic, it's just basically just like the clear the map like big thing that all the others do. So there's nothing too special about it in my opinion. But
I like how to interject. I like how as the gauge is like the timer's going down, you can do successive like blast away attacks with Sonic.
Yeah.
While that gauge is still full. That's cool. I think that's unique to Team Sonic as well.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. I think I only was able to do it once, so I don't know why it took me so long to figure it out. But when I was playing through Team Chaotix a little bit, and I was using their Team Blast, like I was noticing, like, oh yeah, like their blasts are like very honed in, specific to their characters. Because like if you have enemies on screen for Team Chaotix's blast, you get rings, and like they're always struggling for money, so they need to get it from wherever they can.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't
like they're busking in the middle of their fight. Oh,
And honestly,
that's great.
like if you're somebody who has Infinite Team Blast turned on, that's a really good way to cheese the system and get so many rings that you just get the easy A rank because you get so many points.
Yeah.
Also worth noting that if you use that during the even if you don't have infinite, like during Robot Carnival, Robot Storm, if you're using that, you're getting like all the rings, and that's like boosting your gauge up again. So when the cooldown ends, it's right back up again. So you're just infinite. You're getting like as many Team Blasts as you want.
You're getting so many rings that the icons are literally stretching like past the limits of the screen at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I never thought of. I love that a little bit of lore that. The Chaotix gets a little bit of extra dodge from their Team Blast.
But our rings really currency. We have seen that dollar signs appear in Vector and Charmy's eyes when they're discussing pay.
It depends on the game and depends on what the producer is feeling at that time, whether they're allowed to be currency.
Look, they got to get that Maria theme for Adventure 2 Battle somehow.
Oh boy. Yep. I guess I'm kind of missing. I remember as a kid missing like the cultural understanding of what Team Rose's Team Blast is. Is that like a Japanese like a kind of performance thing with where they're standing, or
just kind of bouncing on Big's umbrella?
I recognize the cherry blossoms. Yeah.
If I had to like loosely tie it to anything, maybe kabuki or something, but I don't know.
It's possible.
Yeah, I guess I ought to look that up. I should.
I think there were cherry blossoms there. It feels significant culturally, but I don't know.
Flew over my head. Cherry blossoms. They're rose-colored. Rose, Team Rose, Amy Rose. I don't know.
Sakura, Team Cherry Blossoms, Sakura or Naruto also has pink hair. Well,
yes, the character Naruto has pink hair.
Means pink. Yeah.
You've cracked the code.
Anyway,
let's see. Sakura, women written terribly by men. Amy Rose.
I can fix him, etc.
Yes. Brooding. Anyway, so Team Dark, the one where the story matters, but only kind of.
Yeah.
So,
Shadow's back.
He's back. He's in the green jello.
He's in the 7-Up.
So I do love this scene that Rouge thinks Eggman's got hoards of treasure, because why wouldn't he? And instead she finds two boys.
Yeah. Who tried to murder one another, which is cool.
So Omega has been locked away in Eggman's storage because he's too powerful. I think there is some lore of like how he is the ultimate realization of the E-series and is powered by, I want to say, the Chaos drives. I can't back that up off the top of my head, but yeah.
And anger.
He doesn't have little birdies in him. He is powered by possibly Chaos drives and pure hatred. And so he takes it personally when Eggman locks him away. And so as soon as he wakes up, he thinks Shadow is one of Eggman's robots and goes to blow him away with his realistic machine gun arms. They decide to track down Eggman together for various reasons. Shadow has apparently lost his memory and wants Eggman to answer questions. Omega wants to murder him, and Rouge wants whatever treasure he's got locked up. What we really get is after Egg Albatross, as Team Dark, is where there is just a Shadow rope android. This is another thing that the English messes up but gets right in Shadow's game is Shadow, they are using the phrase android, like they say it in English. There is a Shadow android bisected and sparking from its torso after Egg Albatross, and you're just supposed to think, okay, so could the Shadow we're playing as be a fake copy? Which kind of gets implied even more at the end, where Rouge walks into a room and there are dozens, if not hundreds, of Shadow androids in the same capsules as the opening scene. And this is another one where I compared the translations because it just gets muddy, where Rouge just kind of casually says to Omega over her shoulder,
"Hey Omega, did I ever tell you that Shadow is a robot? And oh, never mind."
And Omega says,
"You know about cloning."
So they'd slightly changed that line.
It's much more explicit that he is implying that Omega follows up and says, he doesn't say cloning, which is also a weird word to use.
I was going to say, that's
here.
the thing. They slightly changed that line between revisions of the English script.
No, holy shit, go ahead.
The early version of the cutscene I was talking about, he says,
"If he is a copy, then the real Shadow must exist somewhere."
That's much more in line with what the Japanese says, which just implies that says, even if our Shadow is a copy, the original is out there. But also leaves it ambiguous that okay, well, our Shadow could be the original, and that's where these copies came from, which they expand upon this in Shadow's game, but not really, because if you remember correctly, they don't reveal the real version until 15 minutes until the final fight of Shadow the Hedgehog. Oh my god!
Not giving us the answer in Heroes was a bold choice. I will give him that.
That is the nice way to put that. And now, with hindsight, I'm saying they had no idea what they were going to do.
Oh, absolutely not. Nope.
They just wanted Shadow back because he is super popular.
Yep.
But I just wanted to talk about, it is funny that Team Dark is the only one where the story is actually chooses to go someplace. Even if it is weird and won't get resolved for another few years in spin-off games. But, you know, after you do all the team battles and you unlock the last story where it's revealed, yep, it was Metal Sonic the whole time. He's been copying everyone's life data. Not unlike
your life data.
Cell from Dragon Ball Z. Yeah. We get a nice shot of him, you know, lightning crashing before he transforms into the required boss dragon. And I remember this being more fun back in the day, but the fight, the cutscenes are super cool. You got all our characters together. Here we get the, you know, I love Shadow's line where he says,
"We'll buy you some time. That way you can use your superpowers."
お前たちはスーパー顔
Superpowers.
How do you know that they have that, Shadow?
Yeah. Oh, did you remember? Which, hey, to be fair, at the end of Team Darks, we do get Rouge says something about,
I might as well go look for that Master Emerald, since that irritating Echidna is here.
Some things never change, do they?
Yeah, what the fuck?
They've been hinting that Shadow is vaguely remembering things throughout the whole story, like space? Did you say space?
True.
yeah.
That's vague enough for me to remember part of my backstory.
Who am I?
I think that was intentional, and I kind of like that.
By the way, while we talk about this scene, can I talk about another great Dean Bristow read?
If only we had the 7 Chaos Emeralds!
Wow, you actually went through all that bullshit to get him? Okay.
I got stuck on the roof of this thing many times and was walking backwards, but holy cow!
It's because of my long legs.
I like this cutscene. I do remember feelings of disappointed when Tails and Knuckles just get the shields and not their super forms that they already had in Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
I mean, technically their super forms was just like recolored versions of them, kind of, or shiny versions. But yeah, Sonic, only the Hedgehogs are allowed to have that now.
Give Tails back his super flickies. Do it.
God, can you imagine if he got to thundershoot those during the battle? That would have been so cool.
Yes. That would have been great. Of course, the music is great. Supersonic looks
What
pretty
I'm made
cool.
of is still one of Crush 40's best.
I mean, it's the case of they didn't use the main theme for the final battle, because this one's better.
Yeah. I do like that
so
trend.
The reason I covered What I'm Made Of like years ago is because that's legitimately my favorite Crush 40 song, just in general.
Heck yeah, it is.
It's great, man.
It's one of those where you listen to the lyrics and you realize, oh, this is about Sonic and not Sonic. Ooh. Oh, I love it. I know. We could have done a whole episode about how good the music is in this game, because it is. We wanted to save it for last because, man, the music is great. I think it was you, Jake, mentioned when we just started replaying this that this feels like a conscious shift and also like an evolution of the music from the adventure titles. That it feels so coherent, because I think, you know, Jun Senue, as far as I know, was like the main composer, the producer, supervisor for all the music, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
I love
mean, like
it.
Seaside Hill feels like a straight up, like the music feels like a straight up sequel to Emerald Coast.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Sonic Heroes was the first video game soundtrack I ever owned physically.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I got that as a birthday present from my parents, like, for my birthday that year, and it's missing a bunch of tracks. Like, this was an American release by, I think, Genion Music, and it only had like 30 tracks. A lot of, like, some of the incidentals were missing, but it was still, like, in regular rotation in my library for a long time.
Nice.
Can I just say, though, not a big fan of Team Sonic's theme. It's a bit saccharine for my taste.
I was gonna say, if we could go through our cutting out the main theme and What I'm Made Of, what is your favorite team theme? And I do have to say that Team Sonic might be at the bottom, because it is just a little too silly even for my taste.
Is this Tony Harnell again from Escape from the City?
Yeah, Ted Poley and Tony Harnell again.
Yeah, they're doing. It's very much. We can make it if we all stick together. Come on, guys.
It's obvious. I mean, that is what they set out to do. So, like, I don't. Hold
they
it against
delivered
them. It's just, it's not my favorite. I think Team Chaotix is really fun. Man. I love, again, how earnestly silly this song about, a crocodile detective agency is.
Honestly, Team Chaotix is my favorite of like the different team theme songs, because I have vivid memories of like burning CDs all the time when I was in high school. And,
Me too.
and like I would always like my favorite one to bring to on the bus with my little like mobile CD player was gosh, I'm sounding old. was the one that has Team Chaotix on it, and I would like repeat that over and over, and I would always get a kick out of "They're gonna kick your
Team Chaotix."
Yeah. Ooh.
But that's just such a good jam. I love it.
I think for me it's a tie, and maybe even out on top is I really like Team Rose's song, because it's the only one it doesn't explicitly name drop the characters, and I almost kind of prefer that. I really like This Machine, because I
so
like Julian K carries over into Shadow's game, and that's a really cool one as well. But yeah, I really like Team Roses because it's just some really nice bubblegum pop, and Kay Hanley has a great voice. She was the singing voice for Josie in the Josie and the Pussycats movie, which also has some very funny post-ironic Sega product placement. They perform at the Sega Dome at the end of that movie.
I feel like Follow Me kind of gives Cream and Big the shaft, though. It's very much an Amy song, and just an Amy song.
Yeah.
All about Amy.
Yep.
But literally all the other songs mention Eggman, funnily enough.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird.
Well, with Rouge in the Fight, Electric Lives, whatever that means.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
But yeah, I really like the character themes. I'm not gonna throw out Team Sonics, but it is at the bottom of my tier list. But I mean, everybody's answer is the Sonic Heroes and What I'm Made Of are the best songs, because they definitely are.
I do think This Machine is my favorite of the character themes. I was really weirded out years later when, after even post Shadow, I'm like, oh hey, that's Julian Kay in the credits of the first Transformers movie, and now they're doing the instrumental score for the Revenge of the Fallen video game. What is happening anymore?
I did a little research with this and Shadow the Hedgehog, that a lot of the guest musicians were just people that Jun Senue liked. So he called them up and said, will you make a Sonic song for me?
I respect that.
Yep. So that is Sonic Heroes. It was a very complicated revisit, I think, for all of us. Oh, I will say I'm glad I did it. I have not played this game, I don't think, since it originally came out. And so it was a, first time since then. And I am glad to have experienced it, even if it was frustrating and seeing things that didn't work and things that did work that maybe they could revisit.
I can see why this is the game that chased quite a few people off, including Demon Tomato Dave, apparently, as we said in the last episode. I feel like this is kind of the game where the genesis of the whole argument of, God, Sonic has too many friend characters. And I could see why they might feel that way in this game, where you're forced to play as a bunch of them to get the through ending. But, although I've never really had that problem with that, because I think the Sonic's friends characters are really good. But anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I do. It is weird that now we see the reverse backlash of, and again, it's because the characters are given so much more to do in other media, that is not repetitive gameplay, that people now want more characters back in main titles. And I mean, I do too. I just also want them, don't do this again necessarily.
I do remember, like, back when this came out, this was like one of the first games where I'm like, this one's not so great. Like, even as a diehard Sonic fan who had more patience for this stuff, this was definitely where I started to see the writing on the wall a little bit.
I think I was in the same boat with that.
Like we said, we didn't want this one to be a downer. We also didn't want to, sugarcoat.
Yeah.
Like we could show you our Discord chat during the weeks where we were playing was a lot more negative than this, let me just say.
Yeah, I feel like ordinarily, sometimes when we do this, we're like, hey, so maybe you should go back and play it if you want. It might be good. Not this time. Like, if you really liked it the first time around, maybe go and see if your feelings remain the same after a replay, because don't think they did for me. But
I might have said this already, but if you're going to, I would say put in the effort to teach yourself. There are tutorials out there how to get the PC version running, and then apply some of those mods that change the physics to be more like the adventure games, and turn some cheats on. I understand why people have lots of, because again, this game is coming up on its 20th anniversary, so there are people like close to our age, a little younger, where this might have been their first experience. And so
I know at least a few.
I know, and I do encourage people to go out and make your own decisions, like but don't, man, it is hard to say to go into this one expecting like an adventure experience, because it is very different. But, not to end it on a sour note, but hey, it's okay to like a game. I'm glad I now have a more complete formation of this game in my brain, revisiting it now.
Yeah, and obviously stuff from this game has gone on to continue to be utilized in later ones to much greater effect, be it, characters, stages, other stuff. We will never stop hearing Seaside Hill remixes for the rest of our lives. And,
Sumo Digital loves this game, in case you didn't notice from the Team Sonic, the racing games, lots of references to this.
Good for them. But yeah, like we said, hey, music's great. Listen to that all day long.
Absolutely.
So that about does it for us today. I hope you enjoyed it. This one was a little more complicated than I think we thought it would be, but I think we got some good discussion points out there. But
it's okay. We got through the episode using the real superpower of teamwork.
Exactly. Because let's see, to quote Sonic, after all, we are Sonic heroes.
So, we are Sonic heroes!
Yeah, where the hill is always greener.
It's no use, but why can't I defeat you?
Because the hill is always green. This does not work.
Oh, so I am Jeremy. I am Game Buddy on social media. You can find me on Twitter at Great Job Jeremy. That's GR and the number 8.
I'm Valero. You can find me as Valero everywhere, including Twitter, and that's FAULERRO. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I stumbled through it.
You're not used to not using the double R.
I know.
You can find me on Twitter at Cyberlink420.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at RockTheJake.
And of course, a special thanks, as always, to Amy Waters for the use of our theme song, which is from the album Gotta Go Slow. You can check out more of her work on YouTube and Bandcamp.
Something we don't say nearly often enough, but if you are, subscribed to us through your podcatcher of choice, please, rate us, share us around. We really want to help the podcast grow, and that does a tremendous amount to kind of make that happen. So
extremely,
we would very much appreciate it.
Please, we're desperate.
Yes. Well, that is, you hear that a lot on the tail end of podcasts, because it does actually help us get discovered by more people. So yes.
I've seen the numbers. I know how this works.
Analytics, man.
So we've picked our subject for our next episode, which we've already said is not the next game in sequence, but instead someday.
Yeah, so for the next episode, we kind of realize it's going to be coming out sometime around mid-October, according to our schedule, which it's already well past, back to school season, but we never stop learning. So we wanted to take a look back at the multiple Sonic educational games. I started doing a little bit of preliminary research, and it's a weird rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, haven't made too many firm commitments, but I might have to dig the Sega Pico I have in my closet out to give you guys some hands-on experience with some of those.
Oh, you foreshadowed it in the first episode, but now we're finally going to bring it up.
Oh, goodness. Well, that about does it for us. So, once again, I'm Game Buddy.
I'm Valero.
I'm Cyberlink.
And I'm Rock the Jake. And hey, look what came out of my egg sack.
It's the cheerfulness in which you said that disarms me.
Thanks for listening, everybody.